Happy Wednesday to everybody out there in this great big world. Yes, this is your brother Dana coming to you from the city of Chicago. I'd like to say a special shalom to all of the precious chosen people, all of my Hebrew family members out there. As my Hebrew brother Yosef put it, it's about time you start dusting off your crowns because you're going to have to put them back on to take your rightful place as royalty, so that the rest of us who want to be blessed can be, due to our allegiance and our loyalty to you. I get a lot of various responses, but most my white evangelical family members will not agree with me when I say that all white people are racist. And what I mean by that is all white people are racist. It just depends on where you are on that pendulum. And I hope that I'm way down, hopefully eventually I'm going to be in the negatives, because as I recognize my white superiority and how deep it goes, because it is the very blood of this nation, when I recognize that and then my attitude is correct, it will eliminate my racist thoughts, actions, behaviors. But see, unfortunately, a majority of my white evangelical family members, first and foremost, won't even admit they're racist. And then they will not admit white superiority. And what we have done to create that myself as a Caucasian, because of the pigment of my skin, is greater than those that have darker pigment. So today, some of you will laugh, but I grew up in southern Minnesota, and so one of the TV shows that I watched growing up was Little House on the Prairie, because I liked watching it because it was in Walnut Grove, and there's times they went to Sleepy Eye and Mankato and Twin Cities, and that's where I lived. Mankato was one of the main places that we would go to a shopping mall, to go to a fast food restaurant, because my town of St. James, Minnesota at the time did not have that. Actually, they still don't. They have McDonald's. but anyway, I liked watching Little House on the Prairie growing up. And so today I happened just to have it on as I was doing some work. And I think I've saw every episode at least once or twice. But on this one, the Ingalls family was going somewhere. And three men approached them, and they were the sheriff. And the Little House on the Prairie was recorded probably in the middle 1800s to the latter part of the 1800s. Horse and buggy, all of that. But the sheriff rode up on Charles and Caroline and said, hey, you better watch out, because we're out here trying to catch this last savage. That's the word they used. Savage. And Charles asked this sheriff from Sleepy Eye, Minnesota, well, what did he do? And this sheriff said, he was born. And so I looked up the word savage. And it says not domesticated or under human control, untamed savage beasts, lacking the restraints normal to civilized human beings. Fierce, ferocious, a savage criminal, wild and uncultivated. That brought up right away the cowboy and Indian movies that my family watched. And I never watched them, I couldn't stand them. But as I look back, I recall that during any of those cowboy Indian movies, the cowboys were always the righteous ones, and the Indians were always the killers, the murderers, those that would come and scalp you. And growing up, I had this innate fear. Even though I knew it wasn't happening, but I had this innate fear because these movies, even though I didn't watch them, they were in the background of me growing up. And then as young kids, you used to play cowboys and Indians. the first thing the Indian would do if they caught the cowboy during being played was to scalp him. Yeah, we didn't do it literally, but that's what you would do. And then as I was just sitting there and meditating, then I thought about one and only movie that possibly could have depicted an Indian as somebody that was not a savage, and that was the Lone Ranger and Tonto. And so I did a little bit of research on the Lone Ranger and Tonto. And one of the words that I have forgotten about over these years, but as a kid we used, was kimosabe. And so kimosabe was just a fictional word that was created for this series. And I believe it was like in the upper 40s and late early 50s or so. It was 8 years that it went on. But then I looked up the word Tonto. Tonto was the Indian that was the friend to the Lone Ranger, the cowboy. Tonto, again, is a fictional character. He is the Native American companion of the Lone Ranger, a popular American Western character created by George W. Trendle. In Italian, in Portuguese, and in Spanish, Tonto is translated to this: a dumb person, a moron, or a fool. Tonto, the Indian, the Native American Indian that was a companion to the Lone Ranger, in several languages is translated to a dumb person, a moron, or a fool. Again, showing the hierarchy, showing white privilege in a Native American Indian. What a fool. What a dumb person. At least he has the Lone Ranger, the white man. So then I went ahead and I Googled what were white American thoughts on African Americans. And it came up with some incredible different articles. And I'm just going to read to you some of them that I found. Beliefs that blacks were mentally inferior, physically and culturally unevolved, and ape-like in appearance were supported by prominent white figures like Abraham Lincoln, Andrew Johnson, and Thomas Jefferson. Theodore Roosevelt publicly stated that as a race and in the mass, the Negroes are altogether inferior to whites. The 9th edition of Encyclopedia Britannica, published in 1884, stated that the African race occupied the lowest position of the evolutionary scale. This idea of African Americans as ape-like savages were exceptionally pervasive. For example, in 1906, the New York Zoological Park featured an exhibit with an African American man and a chimpanzee. Several years later, the Ringling Brothers Circus exhibited the Monkey Man. A black man was caged with a female chimpanzee that had been trained to wash clothes and hang them on the line. Now, scientific studies were conducted to establish the proper place of the African American in society. Scientists conducted tests and measurements and concluded that blacks were savages for the following reasons. A, the abnormal length of the arm. B, the weight of the brain. Negroes were 35 ounces. A gorilla was 20 ounces. But the average European was 45 ounces. Just because we have more water in the brain didn't make us smarter. And history proves that when you look at the majority of the inventions and what really has caused America to be prosperous. It wasn't just our black brothers and sisters out in the fields harvesting your crops, white America, but it was the very tools that you were using to harvest your crops that were created and invented by our Hebrew brothers and sisters. So the way to the brain: C, short, flat, snub nose. D, thick, protruding lips. E, exceedingly thick cranium. F, short black hair or almost flat in sections and distinctively wool. Which, if you look at that goes right with the depiction of who the Son of the Most High Yah, God, was or is in the Bible. He had wool-like hair. And thick epidermis. African Americans were thought to be far less sensitive to pain than whites. For example, black women were thought to experience little pain with childbirth. That's not because they didn't feel pain, white evangelical family members. It's because they're strong women. And that's why the midwives to Pharaoh, back in the time when the Egyptians were enslaving our black brothers and sisters' ancestors, the midwives told Pharaoh that the Hebrew women are not like Egyptian women. They're strong. And they don't need us during childbirth. And by the time we get there, they've moved on. See, so it wasn't that they don't tolerate pain. It's that they're strong and their ability to intolerate the pain was incredible, which is why they're a strong group of people. And that is why you, as my white evangelical family members, are instinctively afraid of them. They could bear cutting with nearly as much impunity as dogs and rabbits. These stereotypes of the animal-like savage were used to rationalize the harsh treatments of slaves during slavery, as well as the murder, torture, and oppression of African Americans following emancipation. However, it can be argued that this stereotype still exists today. It can be argued all you want, but that fact is true. So to you, my white evangelical family members that now want to say that none of this has settled into you, none of this has affected you, that this has not changed you or affected you, I want to say this to you. Why then, as I grew up as a white evangelical family member, was it preached and taught, and even when I went to Moody Bible Institute, the TV was removed from us. We could only play really Christian music. And growing up, and even today, evangelicals, you harp that this bad music, the heavy metal music that your kids are listening to, the evil and the murderous and the killing of all of these video games that kids are playing, and the movies that they're watching that has all this harsh sexual content and homosexuality in it, and violence is affecting your kids to turn and do that which is being placed in them through the video games, the music, and the TV shows and movies. So how are you saying that those things you're concerned about because it ingrains into their minds and into their hearts, but yet all of this teaching that we've been taught in this nation, that blacks and Native American Indians are savages, does not affect you? That's because your heart is racist. And you don't want to embrace the truth because you don't care that the truth. You don't care about the truth in this situation. You don't care because you don't care about our black brothers and sisters. So you don't care what's true. You don't care what they think. What you do care is they try to carry around a proper fakeness or a righteousness or a Christianity-ness of a godliness, a form of it. But you don't care if your kids believe these negative things about our blacks and about our Native American Indians. That's why the first time I went to Africa, everybody was waiting for me to bring back pictures of huts that I stayed in. And when I told them, well, I'll give you a call on my cell phone, they were like, what? So you're going to tell me again that bad music and violent video games and movies and TV shows that show homosexuality in it will affect the thinking of your children, but all of this teaching about our black brothers and sisters and about our Native American Indians as savages, animals, apes, Planet of the Apes, what do you think that was created about? Who do you think white Americans and those that created that movie were really depicting as those apes? The savages that you've taught your us for 400 years. That those are our blacks, our African Americans, our people of color. Well, again, you may not care or feel necessary to care or think it's of any value to you to renounce these lies and to see the true depth of evilness that lies within our white teachings, which also lie within Christianity. But at one point, whether you embrace it or not, you are going to find out that our black brothers and sisters, our African Americans, those colored, are bywords, according to Deuteronomy chapter 28, of their true identity. And their true identity is they are the Hebrews. They are the true chosen people of God. And as believers in the Bible, you have taught that the nation or the people that respect, defend, and cleave to Israel will be blessed. But the nation or the person that curses Israel will be cursed. I can't help it that you don't want to embrace the truth, and I can't help it if you don't want to admit to the lies of our forefathers, which was also in the Bible, that says one day Gentiles across the world will wake up and find out that their forefathers taught them lies of vanity and of uselessness. You don't have to care. But when the seed of Jacob, when the time of the Gentiles is over, as it is now, and you will see the evidence in this physically, you will care. But for most of you, even as the Bible says, only a handful of us are going to admit to these facts and humble ourselves enough to repent of our white supremacy and to walk away from our white Christianity, to cleave to the truth and cleave to our black brothers and sisters, the true people of the Most High Yah. You will not. And you will find yourself being judged by the very judgment that you know is coming to this country, but you thought it was for everybody else. So to him that has an ear, I pray that you will hear. Because I know that my God, the Most High Yah, the true living God, is removing his grace to those of you who refuse to let God's children go. Shalom.